When was the last time you had that overwhelming feeling of accomplishment? You completed something important. You returned from a retreat or holiday that changed your perspective. We've all enjoyed that blissful moment of transformation. In today's episode of The Sidebar, we are looking at a blog post from May of 2025 by artist and explorer Jeremy Brunansky. This is the final installment in a 6-part series that highlights the hero's journey. In today's episode, you'll discover how to keep or maintain your new perspective when your new leveled-up personality comes in conflict with the old, outdated world you must walk back into. Just because you evolved doesn't mean the world did too. Let's fortify your new evolved self. Grab your coffee, tea, or wine. It's time for The Sidebar.
So, have you ever had a moment where you could physically feel the atmosphere alter?
Oh, like a real tangible shift in the room.
Exactly. Not just, a subtle change in your mood, but a distinct moment where you realize you've crossed an invisible threshold. The kind of realization where the barometric pressure seems to just plummet.
Right. The air gets heavy.
Yeah, the air gets heavy. And you know with absolute certainty that your perspective is forever changed.
Yeah.
Like you're suddenly looking at your own life, your relationships, your whole future, just through this entirely new lens.
It's a profound feeling. It's almost a jarring physiological sensation, really. It's that rare, visceral feeling of a heavy door just clicking shut behind you. And when that happens, you realize the way you used to react to the world, the minor grievances you used to tolerate, the limited way you viewed your own capabilities, that old version of you is simply gone.
It's just vanished.
Right. And the fascinating part is that the shift happens in a microsecond, right? Even if the psychological buildup to get there took a decade to reach that boiling point.
And that concept of the decade-long buildup, that's actually the perfect launch pad for our deep dive today. We are examining a deeply personal, intensely reflective piece written by a man named Jeremy Brunansky.
A really fascinating set of source materials today.
It really is. So he published this reflection in May of 2025, which marks the exactly 1-year anniversary of a wildly transformative solo trip he took through Europe.
Right, through Amsterdam, Berlin, and Warsaw.
Exactly. And alongside his personal reflection, we're also looking at a detailed personal reference guide he provided. And that guide gives us some crucial background context regarding basically how his mind works.
Which becomes very relevant later on.
Very relevant.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to dissect the anatomy of a life-altering paradigm shift. We want to understand what happens to the human psyche when a dream you have held onto for a decade finally materializes.
Yeah, what does that shockwave look like?
Right. How does that single accomplishment completely rewire how you operate in your everyday life?
And the shockwaves in Jeremy's case are genuinely extraordinary because, we are not talking about a pleasant vacation where someone comes back with, a camera roll full of architecture photos and suddenly prefers European espresso.
Right. It's not a superficial change.
Not at all. We are analyzing fundamental structural shifts in a person's psychology. Like, we're going to explore a concept he refers to as the death of nuance.
That phrase is so striking, the death of nuance.
It really is. It's this radical, almost aggressive form of honesty he adopted upon his return. And we'll examine how he applies a highly specialized technical set of mental tools to navigate just extreme professional chaos.
Oh, the work situation he's in is wild.
Unbelievable. And then, in a really beautiful contrast, we'll look at how he cultivated a deep, passionate, romantic connection with a woman entirely without sharing a spoken language.
Which blew my mind. It's a phenomenal year of growth for him. But I think to comprehend the aftermath, we have to establish the emotional weight of the catalyst itself. The journey itself. So traveling to Amsterdam, to Berlin, to Warsaw, that carried a massive psychological payload for him. This was a dream that had been delayed for over 10 years.
A full decade.
A decade of waiting,
Yeah.
Planning, hoping. And when the time finally arrives for him to go, he makes this logistical decision that, honestly, I think would send most people into an absolute panic.
Oh, for sure.
He intentionally severs his safety net.
He really did. Traveling alone is one hurdle, right? But he took it a significant step further. He deliberately chose not to leave his itinerary with anyone back home.
He just vanished into the trip.
Exactly. He notes in his reflection that in his younger years, he always ensured a safety net was securely in place. Like, if something went horribly wrong, someone in his network knew his location. Someone could theoretically step in and help.
But this time, zero infrastructure.
Right. He stripped all of that away. He describes himself as a man alone. If a crisis occurred, whether it was logistical or medical, he was the sole individual responsible for finding the solution.
And making that deliberate choice, to force self-reliance, that completely changes the stakes of the trip. If you know someone is coming to rescue you, your brain doesn't have to fully engage its survival mechanism.
You stay a bit lazy.
Exactly. But removing the net, that forces your mind to adapt instantly. And it makes me think about the specific moment he actually arrives in Europe.
Oh, the moment at the train station.
Yeah, there is this incredibly powerful narrative anchor in his piece. He lands, he takes the train from the airport into the city, and he steps out at Amsterdam Central. He actually took a photo of his exact view right then, because the physical sensation of that moment hit him so intensely. So he's standing there, he's staring at the waters of the canal, feeling this cool, humid breeze brushing past his skin.
Just taking it all in.
Yeah, and in that specific sensory moment, he says his life changed.
And the inclusion of those sensory details, the cool, humid breeze, the movement of the water in the canal, that's critical for understanding the psychology of a breakthrough.
How so?
Well, when you hold a specific dream in your mind for 10 years, your brain tends to mythologize it. The psychological pressure of a deferred dream can actually become a burden.
Like it gets too big to be real.
Exactly. It turns into this idealized fantasy that feels increasingly impossible to live up to. But when it finally materializes, and you're standing there processing the physical reality of the temperature and the environment, your brain has to reconcile that decade of fantasy with the present reality.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like arriving at a tourist destination. It feels like you have physically crossed a massive milestone. You've manifested a decade of longing into something you can actually touch.
And he uses a fantastic analogy to describe that feeling of hitting the milestone. He writes that the accomplishment felt like he had closed a massive chapter of his life, stepped directly into a new one, and borrowing a concept from video games, he felt like he leveled up.
A leveled up version of himself.
Yeah. And I want to explore the mechanics of that analogy a bit because, in a video game, when a character levels up, it's not just a cosmetic change.
Right. You don't just get a new hat.
Exactly. Your base statistics mathematically increase. Your old armor suddenly becomes obsolete because you are facing higher tier environments. And those low-level enemies or the challenges that used to drain your health bar, you can just walk right past them without taking damage.
That's a great way to frame it.
So how does that digital concept map onto human neurology and psychology?
Well, it maps beautifully, particularly when we consider the extreme conditions he imposed on the trip. Solo travel without a safety net forces a state of hyper-awareness and rapid neuroplasticity.
Because your brain is on high alert.
Exactly. You are suddenly dropped into foreign transit systems, you're forced to decipher unfamiliar social cues, and you are managing your own internal anxieties without the luxury of a familiar sounding board.
Right, you can't just vent to a friend.
No, you can't. And Jeremy navigated through 3 distinct countries: the Netherlands, Germany, and Poland. He was immersed in an environment where his previous daily habits were completely useless.
And he mentions fully diving into those local cultures, too. Like, he wasn't just sitting in a hotel. He was eating the regional food, drinking local beers, visiting historical sites, spending time in cigar lounges.
Oh, and golfing in Poland.
Yeah, golfing in Poland. And he was actively engaging with the world, not just observing it from, like, the safety of a tour bus.
And that active engagement, that is the mechanism for the level up. Think about it. Every single time you successfully order a meal in a language you barely speak, or every time you navigate a confusing subway system in Berlin or locate a hidden landmark entirely on your own, your brain logs a neurological victory.
It's proving something to itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It releases dopamine and reinforces a new pathway of self-efficacy. Your baseline for what you genuinely believe you're capable of fundamentally rewires itself.
So it's not like he became a different person. But...
Right, the resilience, the quick decision-making, the strength he discovered, those weren't necessarily brand new traits. They were dormant. They were just hidden beneath the comfortable, predictable routines of his life back home.
And the forced independence of the European trip acted as the catalyst to permanently unlock them.
Precisely. He proved to his own nervous system that he could thrive entirely on his own terms.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, you've probably experienced a microversion of this in your own life. Think about a time you conquered a massive project or maybe navigated a crisis and you felt that sudden, intoxicating surge of elevated confidence.
You feel invincible.
You really do. But the tragedy of the human condition is that the feeling rarely survives the return to normalcy, right? You feel like a superhero until you walk through your front door and realize you still have to do the laundry and pay the electric bill.
The daily grind brings you back down.
Yeah, the momentum fades. But for Jeremy, the fascinating element of this story is that the momentum did not fade. He brought that leveled up version of himself back to his everyday life, and he just refused to take the new armor off.
And, bringing a leveled up mindset back into a baseline environment guarantees friction.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you've changed, but the people and the systems around you have not. Jeremy acknowledges in his writing that there was turbulence upon his return. The critical difference is that his newly established mental baseline simply rejected the idea of spending energy on negativity.
The old armor didn't fit.
Right. The low-level interpersonal dramas that used to cause him stress were suddenly recognized as trivial.
Which leads us directly into the behavioral changes he implemented back home. Because a leveled-up psychology demands a completely new interface with the world. And for Jeremy, this manifested as a profound, uncompromising shift in his communication style. He describes himself as operating with little to no subtlety anymore.
Zero subtlety.
Zero. If an issue arises, he looks at the person involved and clearly states, this is a problem. If an idea is proposed that he disagrees with, he plainly says, I'm not a fan of that.
It's very direct.
Very. And he coined a phrase for this new operational state. He calls it the death of nuance.
The death of nuance. It's a highly evocative phrase, isn't it?
It really is.
Because in the context of social dynamics, nuance is frequently just a polite synonym for dancing around the truth.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We use it to protect other people's feelings, to avoid awkwardness, or just to shield ourselves from potential conflict. We expend a massive amount of cognitive energy softening our words, dropping subtle hints about our boundaries, and just hoping the other person is empathetic enough to read between the lines.
It's exhausting.
It is. And Jeremy reached a breaking point where he realized that social lubrication was an unacceptable drain on his energy reserves.
Okay, but let me push back on the execution of that, though.
Sure.
When someone proudly declares, I have no filter, or I just tell it like it is very often a defense mechanism used by people who are simply difficult to work with. Or who lack basic empathy.
Right, it can be an excuse.
Yeah, it can be a blank check to act like a jerk.
Oh,
So
yeah.
does abandoning nuance mean he just became abrasive and hostile to the people around him?
That is the natural concern, of course. But analyzing his reflections reveals a completely different motivation. The death of nuance isn't driven by a desire to be rude or some compulsion to dominate conversations. It's driven by the absolute, uncompromising prioritization of time and energy.
Okay.
And to truly understand the mechanism behind this behavioral shift, we have to factor in a critical piece of context he mentions. He received a severe health diagnosis back in December of 2020.
Right. He brings that up multiple times in the piece. It's his ongoing health issue that still dictates his life to some degree, requiring regular visits to doctors and specialists.
Exactly. And when you introduce a serious lingering health diagnosis into a person's life, you introduce the daily reality of physical vulnerability. Mortality, or at least the severe limitation of your own physical battery, becomes a conscious daily consideration. And when that happens, your perception of time undergoes a radical transformation.
Time stops feeling infinite.
Exactly. Time ceases to be an infinite abstract resource. It becomes a highly restricted, incredibly valuable currency. So when individuals approach him with manufactured drama or attempt to offload their personal chaos onto him, and he isn't being directly compensated to manage it, he relies on a new, highly efficient mantra.
I love this part.
He just looks at them and says, hey, you'll figure it out.
Hey, you'll figure it out. Just hearing that phrase spoken aloud feels incredibly liberating.
It really does. It might sound dismissive to the untrained ear, but psychologically, it is an advanced mechanism for self-preservation.
And he explicitly states he no longer dives into the issues of others. The only exception is if engaging with a problem directly moves him closer to his own ultimate goals.
Right, if there's a strategic reason.
Exactly. And this ruthless prioritization triggered another massive shift for him. He realized, quite peacefully, that he is perfectly fine with losing people from his life.
And that acceptance of losing people, that is a profound marker of adult evolution. He draws a sharp contrast between his current state and his youth. When he was younger, his life was defined by crowds. He was always surrounded by people, always seeking the next gathering.
Very extroverted.
Very. And in that developmental phase, Losing a friend or letting a relationship fade felt like a catastrophic loss of progress. It meant the network was shrinking. It meant you had to start over, and starting over requires a massive investment of time.
But now, sitting in his 40s, managing the reality of the health diagnosis, and having finally tasted the realization of a 10-year dream, his values have just crystallized. Time is the only currency that matters. And he observes that people generally fall into two categories for him now. They're either actively aligned with his goals, which primarily involves working with his attorney to resolve a massive ongoing financial situation, or they are not.
Right.
And if they aren't contributing to the goal and they are draining his energy, he lets them go without a second thought.
It challenges the deep-seated sociological belief that loyalty means maintaining every relationship forever.
We're totally conditioned to believe that holding on to people is inherently virtuous.
We are, but Jeremy's leveled-up state recognizes the fallacy of that conditioning. Shedding the unnecessary is a mechanical requirement for forward momentum. If an individual is not actively helping him secure his money, facilitating his return to Europe, or helping him buy his future boat, they do not get access to his energy. They don't get a seat at the table.
Okay, so I want you to keep that zero-tolerance policy for drama in mind. Keep the phrase, you'll figure it out, echoing in your head. Because the irony of his current situation is just spectacular.
It really is unbelievable.
We have a man who aggressively protects his peace, refuses to carry unpaid emotional labor, and rejects all subtlety. And what is he doing to earn a living right now?
Oh, boy.
He is standing in the dead center of a Category 5 corporate hurricane. He is orchestrating absolute, unmitigated professional chaos.
The contrast is almost cinematic. It is the ultimate stress test for his new psychological framework.
Yeah, how does he not lose his mind?
Well, to understand why he's even in this hurricane, we have to look at the financial holding pattern he is trapped in.
Right. He refers to this as his long-term money. He has been waiting on a financial resolution involving an attorney for nearly 8 years.
8 years of legal limbo. That is exhausting.
Seriously. And his ultimate goal is to secure this money, officially retire, buy a boat, and move back to Europe. But while the lawyer grinds through the legal system, Jeremy obviously needs to fund his daily life.
Right. The bills don't stop.
No, they don't. So following his return from Europe, he started hunting for what he calls short-term money. And he found a company in desperate need of leadership through the 2024 holiday season.
A seemingly straightforward gig.
Right. He accepted it, figuring, how crazy could things possibly get in 5 short months?
Which is the universal battle cry of anyone about to step into a total disaster.
Truly. Because we are now looking at May of 2025, and he's still there. The 5-month gig morphed into a sprawling, complex nightmare. The company initiated a massive corporate remodel while trying to keep all operations running.
And we need to catalog the sheer volume of variables he's managing here because it defies logic.
Lay it out.
So he is attempting to learn the intricacies of a new business model on the fly. Simultaneously, he's managing a diverse staff, which includes individuals with various disabilities, highly volatile personalities, and wildly different skill levels. And because of the ongoing remodel, his daily environment is flooded with external variables. Demolition crews, tearing down walls, plumbers, electricians, architects, making structural changes, and engineers.
The zoo.
And hanging over all of this, he has to interface with and report to multiple layers of corporate leadership.
And we haven't even listed the actual businesses he is keeping afloat amidst the demolition.
Right, the actual operations.
He is overseeing a floral shop, a highly specialized sushi restaurant, multiple traditional dining restaurants, and a bakery.
It is not a job. It is a chaotic ecosystem teetering on the edge of collapse.
And when I was reviewing his reference guide, I kept asking myself, how does the human brain process that? How does one guy manage the delicate supply chain of a sushi chef, the brute force of a demolition crew, and the political maneuvering of corporate executives without just having a nervous breakdown?
It takes a very specific kind of wiring.
Exactly. And the answer is buried in a section of his background called the brain box. It outlines his education, his certifications, and his history. It gave me this incredibly vivid image.
What's the image?
Jeremy is not acting as a manager. He is acting as a conductor for a symphony orchestra where half the musicians are actively trying to set the stage on fire.
That conductor analogy is the exact right framework.
Right.
His ability to survive this environment is directly tied to a highly unusual combination of past experiences. The guy possesses nearly 4 decades of experience in the performing arts.
4 decades.
We are talking classical piano, vocal performance, acting, directing, and filmmaking. And when you spend 40 years in the arts, your brain develops a profound capacity for improvisation.
You have to think on your feet.
You do. You learn how to read the subtle energy of a room. More importantly, you learn how to synthesize wildly different creative inputs and maintain a state of flow, even when a live performance is literally falling apart in front of an audience.
The show must go on.
Exactly.
But, improvisation alone won't keep a corporate remodel on budget.
No, it won't.
And that's where the reference guide highlights the second half of the brain box. He holds these intense, highly technical certifications from IBM and Google in AI risk management, AI efficiencies, and AI governance.
And that is the secret weapon right there.
It's a weird combination.
It is, but think about what the discipline of AI risk management actually is. It is entirely focused on analyzing incredibly complex, unpredictable systems that process millions of variables per second and applying rigid, unyielding governance to them.
Finding order in chaos.
Precisely. It's the science of predicting failure points, establishing strict operational parameters, and optimizing efficiency within that chaos. So when you fuse the improvisational, synthesizing mind of a classical pianist with the cold, analytical, risk-mitigating framework of an AI governance specialist, you get a highly unique cognitive machine.
You get a guy who can look at a florist and an electrician arguing, and he just processes it as a simple load balancing error.
That's exactly it. His brain is mechanically trained to synthesize conflicting inputs without absorbing the emotional weight of them.
Wow.
When an architect approaches him with a critical structural failure, while simultaneously the bakery runs out of supplies and a corporate VP demands a quarterly revenue projection, an average manager would succumb to decision fatigue and panic.
I would be under my desk crying.
Right. But Jeremy processes it as a complex algorithmic risk assessment. He applies the optimal solution based on available data, and he just moves to the next variable. The death of nuance is his greatest asset here.
Because he doesn't care about their feelings in that moment.
Right. He does not get emotionally entangled in the plumber's personal drama or the corporate political maneuvering. He assesses the variables, directs the resources, and executes the play.
He takes that zero tolerance policy for emotional baggage, and he just wields it as a management tool. This is a problem, he says, stripping away the panic. It's remarkably efficient.
Highly optimized.
But this is exactly where the narrative takes a turn that genuinely shocked me.
The contrast.
Yes, the contrast.
Yeah.
We have spent all this time building up the image of Jeremy as this highly fortified, fiercely protective individual. He guards his time, he sets impenetrable boundaries, and he operates like a biological supercomputer in the middle of corporate warfare.
Right.
But then, in his reflection, he introduces us to a completely different dimension of his life, a space where the armor is entirely removed. A space where he is overwhelmingly open, deeply vulnerable, and possesses just infinite patience.
And that contrast is essential for understanding his overall health. The intense boundaries he maintains everywhere else serve a specific purpose. They protect his energy so he can actually pour it into his romantic relationship.
That makes so much sense.
The relationship acts as a necessary counterweight to the rigid governance of his professional life.
Okay, so let's bring Virginia into the story.
Yes.
He actually met her at his gym. She had been a regular there for quite some time, but their paths didn't truly cross until this past year after he returned from Europe with this new mindset.
Timing is everything.
It really is. And her background is wonderfully complex and layered. She is of Caribbean, Italian, and Venezuelan descent.
A beautiful mix.
And Jeremy shares this fantastic, slightly humbling geographic realization in his writing about this. He admits that his understanding of South American geography was fairly limited. Like, he always pictured the Caribbean strictly as an archipelago of islands.
Right, just the islands.
Yeah, he hadn't realized that Venezuela, being on the northern coast of South America, is actually considered a land nation of the Caribbean.
Okay.
He seems just completely captivated by the richness of her heritage.
And that willingness to admit ignorance and express genuine fascination, that is a strong indicator of where his emotional energy is being directed.
Right, he wants to learn.
He is eager to be a student of her life. However, the most compelling aspect of their connection is not their diverse backgrounds.
No, it's not.
It is the monumental communication barrier they faced from the very first interaction.
It is a barrier that would stop 99% of relationships before they even started.
Absolutely.
So she is fluent in Spanish and Italian, and she is currently in the process of learning English. Jeremy speaks English. And he freely admits that his Spanish and his Italian are utterly atrocious.
Practically non-existent.
Yeah, he hasn't attempted to use Italian since he was in college, which was over 2 decades ago. They effectively possess zero shared spoken language.
And despite that massive void, they have managed to construct a deeply passionate, highly committed, romantic partnership.
And I have to challenge the reality of this.
Okay, go for it.
Because every piece of conventional relationship wisdom dictates that communication is the absolute bedrock of intimacy.
Sure.
Spoken language is how you navigate conflict. It's how you articulate your core values. It's how you negotiate the complexities of a shared future. How is it functionally possible to build a foundational romance when your primary tool for expressing a complex emotional thought is the Google Translate app?
It sounds impossible.
Right. Doesn't that inherently breed endless misunderstandings and frustration? Like, how do you even have an argument?
It definitely challenges the core assumptions we hold regarding human connection. But to understand how it works, we have to examine what happens to human behavior when you forcibly remove the crutch of easy, fluent spoken language.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, before they even integrated the translation app into their dynamic, Jeremy notes that they communicated primarily through looks, gestures, and energy. In modern society, we rely so heavily on the convenience of words that we completely neglect the vast, rich spectrum of nonverbal communication.
That's true.
Microexpressions, the subtle shifts in body language, the specific, intentional way someone directs their physical attention towards you, these convey immense amounts of data.
Because they lack the ability to casually chat about the weather or just fill the silence with small talk, every single interaction had to carry weight. It forced intentionality.
Exactly. Think about the mechanics of actually using a translation app. When you have to type out a thought, wait for the software to process it, hand the device over, and watch the other person read it, you do not waste that effort on trivialities.
Right, you're not translating nice weather we're having.
No, you say what actually matters. It strips away the fluff. It forces a radical, almost uncomfortable kind of vulnerability.
I can imagine.
You have to maintain eye contact with the person, patiently wait in the silence for the translation to land, and then study their face to ensure they understood your true intent, not just the literal translation of the words.
Wow.
It decelerates the entire process of intimacy to a very deliberate, highly mindful pace. Jeremy explicitly mentions that they both agree they are deeply grateful they took the time to know each other in this methodical way. They are happy to exist in a space of open, honest vulnerability.
That is so powerful. And he ties this experience back to a broader, almost spiritual philosophy he's developed. He writes, "Now, in my 40s, I tell people all the time, there's an energy force in life. Once you lock into it, things flow."
The energy force.
Yeah. Finding a partner who makes you actively want to scale a barrier that steeps someone, who makes you want to sit in silence and painstakingly type your deepest feelings into a phone just so they can understand your heart, that is the ultimate testament to that energy force.
It really is.
It's the exact polar opposite of his professional persona. At work, he dismisses chaos with, you'll figure it out. But with Virginia, his actions scream, we are going to figure this out together, word by translated word, no matter how long it takes.
It's the perfect illustration of his leveled-up prioritization. Because he fiercely guards his energy against the trivial demands of the world, he has cultivated a massive, deep reservoir of patience and energy exclusively for the things that actually matter. And the life they are actively building sounds incredibly rich and integrated. They aren't just sitting in a room staring at translation screens, you know?
Right. They're living.
They're actively sharing a life. They engage in intense weight training together regularly, following a structured program they both enjoy. They go on dates. They plan staycations to explore their own city.
And the integration extends to her family, too, which is beautiful. Her parents, who emigrated from Italy and Venezuela, have welcomed him into their home to cook traditional, authentic meals for him. And food operates as the ultimate universal language of care when words fail. They are passionately involved in each other's daily lives, and they are actively, seriously discussing future plans together. It is a seamless synthesis of two completely distinct worlds.
It is also crucial to recognize how his approach to this relationship directly mirrors the mental resilience he forged in Europe.
Oh, that's an interesting connection.
Think about it. When he was in Amsterdam or Warsaw, he was navigating foreign, unpredictable landscapes without the benefit of a map or a safety net.
Right.
In this relationship, he is navigating the complex landscape of romantic intimacy without the safety net of a shared spoken language. Both scenarios demand immense patience, extreme adaptability, and a courageous willingness to step far outside his established comfort zone.
And that resilience, that proven ability to push through profound discomfort and systematically dismantle barriers, that spills over directly into his physical life. The mental fortitude he demonstrated in Europe and in his relationship is mirrored by some massive physical triumphs over the past year. Which brings us to the inclusion of the Spartan race in his reflection.
The Spartan race is a highly significant milestone in his year. A group of regulars from his gym people who had witnessed his daily commitment invited him to join their team for a 10K obstacle course known as the Spartan.
And for listeners who measure their daily commute in miles rather than kilometers, a 10K is roughly 6.2 miles of running.
Quite a distance.
Yeah, but the Spartan is not a casual charity jog through a local park.
Not at all.
It is a grueling, punishing obstacle course designed to break people. He mentions being completely exhausted just from the training regimen leading up to the event.
Just getting to the starting line is hard.
Right. But he and the 3 gym regulars started the race as a unit, and most importantly, they crossed the finish line as a unit. He paints this visceral, triumphant image of the finale. He describes feeling an overwhelming sense of pride and accomplishment after literally jumping over a wall of fire to cross the finish line.
Jumping over fire, I mean, it is such a potent, primal symbol of conquering adversity.
It's like something out of a movie.
It is. But to fully grasp the emotional weight of that specific achievement, we have to return to the context of the December 2020 health diagnosis.
Right, because that looms over all of this.
He brings it up again specifically in relation to the race. He writes, "Despite my health problems that were diagnosed back in December of 2020, I completed a massive physical challenge this year."
So this isn't just a story about a guy in his 40s deciding to get off the couch and run a Tough Mudder on a weekend.
Not at all. When you are forced to live with a chronic or lingering health issue, one that dictates your schedule with ongoing doctor appointments and specialist evaluations, your relationship with your own body fundamentally changes.
It becomes strained.
Yeah, your body can begin to feel like a liability. It feels unpredictable, fragile, and sometimes like a betrayer. Committing to, training for, and completing a grueling 6-mile obstacle course isn't about proving cardiovascular fitness.
What is it about?
It is a profound, aggressive statement of reclaiming physical agency. It is his method of looking at his own body and the world at large and declaring that despite the diagnosis, despite the limitations, he is still entirely capable of jumping over fire.
Wow.
It is a violent rejection of the physical limitations his diagnosis tried to impose on him.
It's the physical manifestation of the level up.
Exactly.
He forged the new armor in Europe, and he tested its durability in the fire of the Spartan race. But amidst all of these massive, sweeping life shifts, the profound psychological epiphanies on the canals of Amsterdam, the high-stakes, algorithmic orchestration of corporate chaos, the transcendent, language-defying romantic connection, and the literal fire jumping, there's one final, wonderful element in his story.
The anchor.
Yes, the grounding force of his life. And that is Ray.
Ah, yes. Ray the dog. She is essential to the ecosystem of this story.
I absolutely love that he dedicated a section of this deep reflection to Ray. She perfectly represents the everyday, messy realities that serve to anchor all of these massive philosophical dreams.
She keeps him grounded.
She does. He provides an update on her health, and it's this mix of humor and genuine poignancy. First, he shares the victory. Her severe allergies are finally under control.
That's a huge relief.
It is. They no longer have to make constant, stressful vet visits to manage her skin reactions. However, as with any beloved pet, there is a complication.
There is always a chaotic variable when it comes to animals.
Always. So Ray, turns out, completely lacks the concept of breaks.
No breaks whatsoever.
Jeremy explains that she has never developed the physical or mental ability to stop her momentum when she starts running. Consequently, she constantly and violently smacks her head into windows, doors, walls, and most hilariously directly into Jeremy's head while he is trying to sleep.
Which is a very specific, jarring type of wake-up call for a man who spends his days applying AI risk management principles to corporate remodels.
You can't mitigate that risk.
You cannot govern a dog with no brakes.
You cannot optimize Ray. But, all of this constant blunt force trauma to her own face has unfortunately caused cumulative damage to her eye.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she is currently scheduled for required eye surgery. But aside from the impending surgery and the lack of breaks, she is thriving. He actually included a photograph in the reference materials.
I saw that.
It shows Ray sitting at a park, resting on a blanket alongside Jeremy and Virginia. She looks incredibly peaceful and just radiantly happy.
You know, Ray serves a vital philosophical narrative purpose in his reflection.
How do you get?
Well, when a person becomes hyper-focused on massive, life-altering, multi-year goals, like battling an attorney to release an 8-year financial settlement, planning the purchase of a boat, orchestrating an international move back to Europe, and managing a deeply chaotic career, it is dangerously easy to become entirely untethered from the present moment.
You just live in the future.
You end up living exclusively in the future. Ray, with her managed allergies and her chaotic inability to stop running into solid objects, absolutely demands presence.
She needs him right now.
Right. She requires immediate care, daily attention, and specialized vet visits. She acts as the grounding reality that keeps his grand, soaring dreams firmly tethered to the daily, unglamorous responsibilities of love and caretaking.
She embodies the beautiful, uncontrollable reality of the now, while he works so meticulously to secure the future.
Exactly.
So let's pull all of these disparate threads together. Let's look at the grand synthesis of Jeremy Brunansky's evolution since that cool, humid breeze washed over him on the canal in Amsterdam.
If we evaluate the overarching narrative of the past year, the most critical takeaway is that the trip to Europe was not an escape from his burdens.
It wasn't just a vacation.
No, it was an activation of his dormant potential. The level up he experienced was not a temporary vacation high that faded upon his return. It unlocked a highly optimized version of Jeremy. He is now uncompromising in his values. He protects his finite time fiercely, shedding relationships that drain his progress without an ounce of guilt. He ingeniously utilizes his unique background, synthesizing the improvisation of the arts with the rigid governance of AI risk management to orchestrate corporate chaos effortlessly.
It's amazing.
He opens himself up to a profoundly vulnerable, patient love across massive language barriers, and he reclaims his physical dominance by jumping over fire, all while managing the daily realities of a lingering health diagnosis and a beloved dog with no brakes.
It is an absolute masterclass in intentional, unapologetic living. And as we look toward his horizon, his ultimate objective remains crystal clear and unwavering.
He's still focused on the prize.
He is. He is still waiting on that long-term money.
Yeah.
The 8-year legal battle continues, but he fully intends to see it through to the very end. When that final variable resolves, the master plan is set.
The boat.
Yes, secure the funds, return to the continent of Europe, purchase the boat, and sail those waters with Virginia, Ray, and only the people who actually matter.
The ones who made the
Right, the people who survived the transition. The people who survived the death of Nuance.
It is a meticulously crafted vision for a life. And what makes his story so incredibly compelling is that he is not just passively sitting around waiting for the lawyer to call.
No, he's busy.
He is actively, aggressively preparing his mind, his body, and his relationships for that eventual reality. He has proactively cleared the deck of all unnecessary emotional and social baggage so that the very second the time comes, he is ready to cast off and sail.
Which brings us right back to the feeling we started with. That visceral sensation of the barometric pressure dropping, the atmosphere altering, the invisible threshold being crossed.
The heavy door shutting.
Jeremy felt it in Amsterdam,
Yeah.
and rather than letting it slip away, he harnessed it. He brought it home and allowed it to completely reshape the architecture of his entire world.
He wore the new armor.
He did. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over long after this deep dive ends. Think about the last time you felt a genuine, undeniable shift in your perspective. A moment where you conquered a fear and felt yourself truly level up.
We've all had those moments.
Did you let the momentum of that triumph slowly fade back into the comfortable numbness of your old routine? Or did you use that spark to permanently redraw the boundaries of what you'll accept in your life?
It's a tough question.
It is. If you woke up tomorrow morning and decided to let the nuance die, if you finally adopted that radical, fiercely protective honesty, whose problems would you finally stop carrying?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.